guys, and welcome back to ECAfrica Talks. My name is Taynita. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us and share your thoughts on our podcast. If you are watching us, you can catch us on Spotify as well. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, you can watch the video version on YouTube. Please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. Let us know any entrepreneurs that you would like to see us interview, or any questions that you have for entrepreneurs in general. We're so willing to engage with you, and we want to see this community grow a bit more. Today's guest is actually a treat for us all. It is somebody who sits on the other side of entrepreneurship, funding, SMEs. And so we're hoping to get a peek into what the funders are looking for and how we as entrepreneurs can meet them at our need and how they can also service us. So Megan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Taynita. It's obviously wonderful to be here. And I'm really hoping that I'm going to be able to provide all your listeners and the SMEs with a little bit of insight in terms of how the workings go with the funders and how it looks on the other side, So hopefully we can get some good advice out there and we can stimulate a little bit of entrepreneurial thinking on the funding side as well. So excited to be here.
I'm so intrigued, and I'm hoping that I learn a bit more. So I'm hoping that this conversation will be something that people can also reference and go back to. So Megan, something that we do on our show, because we think that nobody can advocate for you as well as you can for yourself, is we like to ask our guests to give us a quick snippet of who you are and what you do. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So I'm Megan Dedekind. I'm currently an area manager at Business Partners. Business Partners is an SME funder. That's first and foremost what we do. So we specifically focused on providing financing solutions to small, medium enterprises throughout South Africa. And coupled to that, very specifically developmental impact as well, where we're looking to grow our businesses and provide the right technical support and assistance to try and obviously grow their business and grow the entrepreneurship pool throughout South Africa. I've been with Business Partners now just over 13 years, specifically focused in the Pretoria, Gauteng area. So I run a team of investment officers in Pretoria, and specifically focused on business investments and property investments. On the business investment side, mostly working capital funding, stock type funding, capital assets, management buyouts, acquisitions, occasional startups. We do those as well. And then also your commercial, industrial, retail property transactions. And that would be for your wholly owned properties as well as your multi-tenanted investment type properties.
So very diverse in the range that you guys go for.
Yes, it's actually very exciting. To be part of Business Partners, it's such a wonderful experience because we get exposed to so many different businesses. So we get to learn a lot. We get to see the ins and outs of running a business and understanding the actual mechanics and the workings within a business and all the different business models that are actually out there. Not to mention the different industries and different sectors. So we fund pretty much all industry. Large focus, I would say, still on manufacturing. Those are the fun industries, medical, education, across the board. Only place that we don't normally get involved in is primary agriculture, but your agro-processing, all of that, we like to play in those fields. So very rewarding, and obviously very rewarding when you can see the entrepreneur's dream really unfolding and being part of that journey. So it's a wonderful business to be part of.
So obviously you guys see such a diverse range of entrepreneurs in so many different industries. And so something I'm always intrigued about is, what does the landscape currently look like for SMEs, and what are some of the trends you guys are seeing emerge in South Africa especially?
That's not the most straightforward question, or there's not necessarily the most straightforward answer. I would say in South Africa, the SME market is most probably a bit constrained at this stage. We see a lot of political instability, there's issues with load shedding, high interest rate environment. So it does make it a difficult environment to operate in. We obviously also post-COVID, so there's a lot of cash flow constraints. So it's a very different market that we're currently working in pre-COVID. So at this stage, I would say a lot of our SMEs are struggling at this stage with cash flow. We're seeing a lot of payment terms, specifically with suppliers, have obviously been pulled. So we see quite often that there's a cash flow funding gap, and there's a big need for us to come in and assist entrepreneurs with that. Having said that, however, working with entrepreneurs, and you'll know that yourself, Taynita, is that entrepreneurs are innovators. Entrepreneurs have a very different kind of mindset where we are looking to find solutions, So I have the privilege of working obviously in this environment where we're working with a very positive mindset type of person. So we are looking or working with people who are looking to solve the problem. So within that, there's a lot of opportunity for our small business if you've got your eyes open, if I can say it like that.
I love that. So can you speak to us a little bit about funding an SME and maybe some of the things that you're looking for when you're going into funding an SME?
I think first and foremost, when a SME comes to us to apply for funding, you need to make sure that all of your compliance is in place. Okay, so firstly, are you a formally registered SME? Okay, so how are you structured? Are you a sole proprietor? Are you a CC? Are you a PTY? What kind of structure do you have? Are all of your company documents in place? Are you registered at SARS? Is your tax compliance in place? Are you up to date? So we look at all of those items first and foremost. And then it comes down to, as an existing SME, what is going on with your financial statements? You need to make sure that all of these documents are up to date and that they are in place, because that is the first thing that a funder is going to ask you for. I need to see your track record. I need to see your financial performance, and then also your story. You need to be able to convey your story well and with confidence to the funder, because that immediately it creates, it's a good word, but it creates belief or proper understanding in your business. And it helps me as the funder obviously begin to understand you and where you're coming from. And then beyond that, you need to understand your funding requirement and your cash flow projections, how you motivate those projections, so that I can ultimately, as the funder, gauge the viability of what it is that we want to do and be able to motivate it as well. So all of that information needs to be available to me to be able to make ultimately a funding decision.
So what I'm also hearing is that it's important to sort of have your ducks in a row before you're going into a funding institution.
Without a doubt. And again, that's the same for startups, So you might not necessarily then have existing financial statements, but you need to understand your vision for your business, the mission of the business. You need to understand your goals, and you need to understand your market at the end of the day. And then that ultimately comes down again into your projections. So what is your turnover made of? What is the business model? So what is the essence of this business and how are we going to make money? And that ultimately needs to be conveyed to me again as the funder.
And I'm assuming it's also the authenticity of that, right? Mm-hmm. Not inflating these numbers, being really realistic about the goals that you're setting.
As far as possible, obviously, because at the end of the day, I need to motivate it, right. So it's very easy to say I'm going to make, for instance, R1 million a month, but why?
And what are the steps to doing that?
So I need to understand that. So it's the motivation behind it as well.
Something that you touched on, and I've actually heard you speak about before when we've spoken, is that you speak about the story, but also the entrepreneur who you're investing into. Mm-hmm. And I noticed it with business partners when we interact with your team, that there is a genuine concern, but also interest in the entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And so can you speak to me a little bit about the relationship between the funder and the entrepreneur and that dance that you're doing and why you guys play such an important role on the entrepreneur?
Without a doubt. So again, the entrepreneur, regardless of the brilliance of the product, the innovation of the product, what market you're in, it all comes down to who is the driving force behind this business. You can have the most fantastic product, but if you don't have the right person backing it, it won't necessarily fly. So for us, we place a lot of emphasis on who that entrepreneur is. So again, but this is obviously us as business partners, we like to, or we need to understand who our entrepreneur is. We need to get to know you. So we do spend a large amount of time getting to know our entrepreneurs. Again, getting to know their history, their background, how they got into the business that they're currently in, their vision for the business and what their future planning may be, their contingency planning for the business. So we spend a lot of time with them getting to know that. And even through that process, there's actually quite a lot of advice giving from our side, potentially, obviously depending on the business and the client, to try and build the business and build the business plan, to try and tailor it into a fundable model at the end of the day.
Right. And I'm assuming, I'm not even assuming, I've watched you, and I mean, we were lucky enough to have somebody who came on from Business Partners. The care that you take with entrepreneur also feels like there is an ability to tailor the funding solutions based on that. And I think maybe can you just speak us through the ability for the entrepreneur to sort of advocate for themselves and also ask for maybe a different solution that isn't a paper black and white thing? Is there space for an entrepreneur to say, hey, I feel a little bit uncomfortable about this, or can we use this solution and tailor it a little bit differently?
Yeah, listen, without a doubt. So we always say at Business Partners our entrepreneurs are square pegs in a round hole, So at the end of the day, we do try to think out of the box, So we obviously do have specific outlines for different products that we do have. But every single deal is different. It can even be two of the same restaurants as two mug and bean restaurants, but I can tell you the deal dynamics are going to be different, and they're going to look different because it's a different person behind it. So every transaction is different. And again, it's always a bit of a negotiation process. And that's why I say the entrepreneur mustn't be afraid to negotiate with the funder. You must be confident, know your business, talk to me, again, I'm also a person, so it shouldn't be an intimidating process. It might feel intimidating because not everybody is necessarily used to working with money and funding, but for us, we are in that space. This is what we do every day. So we are quite open to hearing your story, understanding your story, and as far as possible, tailoring a transaction that ultimately makes sense for both parties. So obviously from our side, we do assess the risks in the transaction. So we do need to understand the risks. Those are risks obviously conveyed to the entrepreneur so that everybody understands where we are coming from and why a transaction might be structured in a certain way. And then ultimately we do have various financial instruments to help us structure a transaction that works for that specific business. Yeah.
So can you speak to me a bit about why? So we've had a few entrepreneurs on this couch, right? And you hear it both ways. There's people that are saying there's a plethora of funding and we're just, we need to apply. And then the other side of it is saying, especially as Black entrepreneurs, that there might be this gatekeeping or it's difficult to find the right funder. And so, I mean, you are the funder and you guys are seeing these businesses. What is the truth, but what are some of the things that you guys are seeing? Because it does feel like funding is this big umbrella and it's this monster and you're either having to give equity in your business or you're getting into bad deals or there's like these angels who come across. And so it does feel very daunting. And so when people say there is no funding, what are they actually saying?
Yeah. Again, there's actually a variety of funding available in the market. And I think what happens is that people do not understand necessarily the type of funders that are out there, and they are not necessarily able to match their need to the right funder. Okay, so to give you the most straightforward or easiest example, you may have somebody who's come up with a really innovative idea, maybe a tech type business, but it's a startup business, so it's pre-revenue, and they might go to their bank to apply for funding. Now, a bank is more risk averse. They're a custodian of our money and they have certain criteria that need to be met to be able to finance a small business. So that might not necessarily be the right place to go and get funding. And that's why I say the small business needs to understand their need and then go and look for the different types of funders. Because obviously, first port of call would normally be the banks, because everybody is used to that. We can understand what the banks are there for. But I mean, we've got alternative funders like our business partners who are more risk-based and viability-based finance here, where we actually look into the business and willing to take on certain risks, but obviously for a certain return. You get your private equity, you get your venture capital. We get a lot of cash flow funders these days. So your Lululens, your Bridgements, your cap funds, who are there to assist with bridging the gap in terms of cash flow. And then obviously, you do get your private investors. So we do have certain angel funders. We get partnerships, family members, that type of thing. But on those levels, when it becomes something like that, we always say you should tread with caution. For instance, like a partnership, if you're going to bring somebody into your business, what are they bringing to the table? So you need to understand, are they going to be hands-in or hands-on on your business? Is it purely a monetary contribution? Will they want to take over some kind of control? Will they be involved in decision-making? If we take up money from family members or friends, they could at any point in time, for whatever reason, call up their facility and say, I need my money. Some emergency has happened in my life, and then suddenly you need to repay that money, or you need to go and look for other debt to go and find money. So you need to understand the different forms of funding out there. You need to understand also the criteria of those funders and their requirements, because, for instance, if it's a development funding institution, so it's more government-driven type funding, might come with cheaper funding terms, but in the same breath, it could take longer to get approved. And then attached to that, there's normally some kind of impact stats that also need to go, and reporting that needs to go with it. So you need to obviously show job creation, skills development, certain employment equity within the business. So you need to understand the requirements of your funders before you also go out there and you select your funding. So there is actually a little bit of homework that needs to be done on the funder, and then also understanding your funding requirement.
Right. And from what I'm hearing from you is that it isn't a straight cut, like, let's go this way. It does take a little bit of legwork and speaking to other people, and maybe even speaking to people from different industries to you, because I know even with ECAfrica, we're in this network of really dynamic tech people who are changing the game, but our entrepreneurs are so diverse that we're able to ask and be like, okay, what sort of worked for you? What didn't work for you? How long did you bootstrap? How long did you inject your own funds into it before you started seeking something else? Because I think sometimes it can feel like you need to hit funding right now because that feels like the right thing to do. But you can actually put that off for a little bit longer. You can try and generate revenue within your business and then take that to a fund and be like, hey, this is what we have. This is what we bring to the table. How do we, like you're saying, not to be afraid to be, and say, how do we negotiate this? How do I find something that feels good and will sort of work within the growth of our business? And so I really like what you're saying. Like, you have to have that checklist
in place, without a doubt. And almost what you've said now, I think what's very important to an entrepreneur and a small business owner, because again, as an entrepreneur, obviously depending on the size of your business and your support, it's actually quite a lonely journey, right? It's me trying to conquer the world, you need to network yourself and you need to expose yourself, whether it's various industry players in your space or to diversify your network, for various reasons, obviously to up your sales, to up your market, but in the same breath to explore different avenues of doing business, different business models, and trying to gain as much knowledge as what there is in the industry. So I think that's very, very, very important, because there's a lot of advice out there. This leads me to another train of thought, that one of the biggest issues next to funding small business is actually access to information. Those are probably our two most common cited problems in entrepreneurship: access to finance, access to information and support services. So support services for small business is critical. We need that support from mentorship, coaching, strategy, marketing. There are so many things, there's so many aspects in a business. And I think once you venture into the entrepreneurship space, you only start realizing how much you still need to learn. And I think the best space that you can do is then to start networking yourself and exposing yourself as far as possible to other small businesses so that you can learn.
So just piggybacking off that, I'm assuming that you've had entrepreneurs come to you guys at different stages, people who have become incredibly successful, people who have maybe failed or are not doing as well as you guys had projected them to. What are some of the things that make a successful entrepreneur from a funder who's looking at them? Because I'm always just really interested to know, obviously a lot of it is luck, a lot of it is the entrepreneur themselves and their willingness to pivot, to take risks, to do all of that. But are there some things that we should all be implementing in our SMEs, in our small businesses, that lend to being a little bit more successful?
Oh, again, that's a very difficult question. I think more so than anything else, I do think it's mindset. So I think the real successful entrepreneurs have the ability to just push on when it gets tough. They are able to pivot their businesses. They also then have access to support services, mentors, outside people to be able to soundboard off or to brainstorm new ideas. So I think that's very important. But yeah, I would say first and foremost, the really successful entrepreneurs, it's a mindset thing where come hell or high water, I'm going to make this work, and they're willing to take the good with the bad. I think it also comes down to very, very keen cash flow management within your business. So it's also maybe on a more technical level, but understanding your finances, understanding your cash flows, and understanding your overhead structures. And if we do hit a sticky patch, being able to understand where can I reduce costs or how can I improve things. So I think it comes down to very, very stringent cash flow management within a business as well. And then, like I say, access to outside support at the end of the day, and other type of mentorship or guidance.
Which I noticed at Business Partners, you guys really do champion that when it comes to your SMEs. Making sure that they're getting upskilled, that you're constantly curious for information, because I guess the landscape shifts no matter what industry you're in, right? As time comes, there are new innovations, there are different ways of doing things, and so remaining curious in that.
No, without a doubt. Again, we always say our philosophy is twofold. It's doing good and doing well. So on the one side, it's obviously doing well, getting the money out there, funding, making profit, growing business, doing all of that. But then on the flip side, it's the doing good side, where it is that developmental impact, where we need to grow our businesses, where we need to show how we have supported these businesses, and at the same time grow or create jobs, create skills, improve on all of that, So we are very, very, it's passion, at the end of the day that grows that type of thing, So we are quite passionate about that. So we also have a technical assistance fund specifically geared to that type of thing, to support our entrepreneurs. And I can tell you one thing, when you look at financial statements or figures of a business before they've taken on some kind of support to after they've taken on the support, you can actually see it in the numbers, how the margins actually improve.
Which I think is so important to it's why we created ECAfrica, right? We said that entrepreneurs need to learn from people who look like them, who sound like them, who have walked that journey. And you sort of touched on it. You don't know what you don't know until somebody has pointed that out to you or has created a space for you to be curious. And so I think that's so important to look at what technical skills do I have in my current cupboard, I guess, and what do I need to bring in, and knowing when to ask for that assistance.
No, for sure. Again, all of our mentors who are contracted to Business Partners are actually SMEs, they're entrepreneurs, they're specialists in whatever industry they came from, so they also already have walked that entrepreneurial journey. So they know what it feels like, so it's somebody that has walked that line who can empathize with the client as well, So, yeah, I think it's very important to be able to strike up those type of relationships, because those are ultimately the ones that I think a lot of innovation comes from, and a lot of creativity actually comes through that type of discussion at the end of the day.
100%. So I guess something I'm just curious about is, what are you guys as funders hoping for the landscape to do in the next few years? I mean, we are in recovery, we're in an election year, which is, I think, exciting. I think that there's so much opportunity that can come out of this. So there's a current conversation of saying that like Europe and America aren't really investing in South Africa because it feels very risk averse. But then when you speak to South African funders, they seem really excited and they seem really hopeful for what is to come. So what are you guys hoping for?
Man, I think our outlook is very similar in that, with any challenge comes opportunity, So, for instance, to give you an example, through all of the load shedding crisis and all of that, that just spurred on new opportunities to assist our clients on energy funding levels, or green building type funding levels, So it spurs on new ways to be creative for our clients, new ways to design new products for our clients, and to ultimately help SMEs. Like you mentioned, it is an election year, so I think everybody is waiting to see what happens after the 29th of May. But what I can say so far for 2024, what we've experienced is actually quite an active market. We've seen, from my side anyway, more positive transactions, quite a lot of expansionary type transactions. So if anything, I'm hoping for the interest rates to come down a little bit. And I think also post-elections, I think we are hoping to see a more active market and a little bit of growth coming through. That's what we are hoping to see.
So something we like to do in ECAfrica is ask the people who sit on our couch if there's anybody that you have on your radar, if there are any entrepreneurs, shows, anybody that you think needs a shout out, because I think you can only learn about the landscape from people in the landscape. So we're very intrigued. Is there anybody that we should look out for?
Oh, from my side, maybe some of my clients.
Sure.
Who should we look out for? Well, maybe one of the first ones that always pops into my head is Amelia, the lady from our peanut butter manufacturing company. I think she's done extremely well. Her business is growing. She's doing exceptionally well. Trying to think who is a good client who we should keeping a lookout for. Got one or two clients in the ITC or the tech space, or maybe people in the medical field. But yeah, I don't know. Nobody necessarily specific that I couldn't name by name. But there are definitely a lot of clients out there that are doing well. Oh, you know who you could be looking out for? I'm just thinking. Asanda from Chicken Bar. It's a new franchise that is launching now in May. So if anything, if you guys can go and look out for her website, I think that would be great. Go and have a look. Her new store is opened in Pretoria, in Arcadia. And I'm very excited for her. It's a new franchise. It's a new product offering. And if anything, please support our entrepreneurs, support our lady entrepreneurs. Very, very dynamic individual. And I'm hoping to see her franchise grow, obviously, through South Africa. So if anybody can look out for her and go and support her, I'd appreciate that.
Hopefully we'll have more of your entrepreneurs on our show. I mean, we had Level X just before you got here, which was really fun. And so I'm intrigued to hear more about their stories and what they're doing. So we'll definitely give the two ladies that you mentioned, give them a look out, because I think it's also just exciting to hear about new SMEs and new innovations that are happening in the market, it's very encouraging as well to know that there's so much happening on the ground, and hopefully we're seeing a shift and we're seeing South Africa really take center stage when it comes to innovation on the continent. which I'm excited for.
Wonderful. And I'm very excited to be part of it. So thank you for the opportunity.
We're so grateful for you being here. So where can people find business partners? How do they get in touch with, if they want to be funded, if they're looking to even just look at an institution that might provide some support for them?
Business Partners specifically, our head office is located in Houghton, here in Johannesburg, but we do have a network of over 20 offices throughout South Africa. So if you just go onto our website, businesspartners.co.za, you could go and select through and you'll find all the various area offices throughout South Africa and all of the contact details there. And all the different area managers with their direct email addresses should also be on the website as well.
Perfect. And they can also follow you guys. I see that you're
definitely
on all the socials.
Definitely. So we're on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. We're there. So go and have a look at Business Partners. Please go and like our pages. Follow us. There's a lot of new exciting products coming on board, a lot of new products that have just been released. So we're very excited. And if anything, we're actively looking to do business. We're actively looking to do deals and to finance entrepreneurs. So please give us a shout and see, maybe we can help you.
Megan, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for having a candid conversation with us about funding, because like I said, we are a show for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, and sometimes funding, the beast that it is, sounds like something that you can't tackle. But I think you've given us such tidbits of information and such tangible ways that entrepreneurs can seek funders and seek money and capital and advocate for themselves, and also come along and think about coming alongside people that will advocate for their businesses, because I think you've highlighted the importance of that relationship of entrepreneur and funder and the back and forth that takes place there. So thank you so much for coming on. We're so appreciative, and I hope that this episode will be something that people reference and come back to.
I hope so. I really appreciate it, Taynita. And yeah, like I say, if anything, the last little bit of advice for our entrepreneurs is to understand that we as the funders are also people. We want to help you. Our job is to get out there and to actually help you with funding. So don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to ask, if there's something that you don't understand or something that you're not necessarily happy with. Negotiate, ask the questions, be confident in your business. Make sure that you understand whatever term sheet might be issued to you. Make sure you understand the terms and conditions. So be confident. And yeah, don't be afraid to ask for questions. And even if you do get a no, sorry, I know I'm babbling now, but if you do get a no, try to understand why. Make sure that you get the XYZ from the actual funder and ask them, what can I do differently, or how can I improve my application so that I can come back to you in another 12 months? Or maybe ask if you're in the wrong place, refer me to somebody else, because all of us funders do have different networks in various funding spaces, so they should be able to refer you to alternative funders as well.
Sure, that's so good, because I don't think I've ever thought of being like, okay, well, you gave me a no, but do you know somebody else that might give me a yes?
Yeah,
which
exactly. No, ask.
And be bold, I guess, in your ask.
Exactly.
Which is so good. So, guys, I hope that you enjoy this episode. Please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. Check out Business Partners. We're also ECAfrica on all platforms, and we really want to engage with you. So please leave a comment on LinkedIn, on Facebook, wherever you find us. We're so willing to interact with you guys, and we hope to see this community grow. But for now, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.